We light the candle to remind us of the light of reason, the source of meaning and wonder in the world. And just as we light the candle, let us remember how the light was ignited in each one of us as we were born curious and craving affection. We close the candle in the lantern to remind us that the light must be protected. Just as the flame can be fanned through the virtues of compassion and skepticism, so too can it be extinguished through fear and ignorance and neglect. Let each of us embody the light through the rigorous study and application of skeptical values. Let us spread the light through our shining example and through education and outreach. And let us protect the light by standing up for science and reason wherever darkness gathers. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. And we repeat together. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. Let it be so.
Okay, good afternoon, welcome, and happy Valentine's Day. I wasn't fishing for that, but this really is a romantic group of people. You thought enough of your loved ones to drag them out here this morning and afternoon, so well done, you guys. This is our first sanctuary in Dallas, so for those of us that came from far north, thanks for making the trip. We don't have mics in here. Can you guys hear me okay? Great. And on top of the travel, we also had the rain. Am I on? Yep. So the trip was extra arduous. So again, thanks for everyone who came out. But also, for those of you that live in the area, now we know how you feel. So thanks for all the trips you've ever made out north. It's fair that you shouldn't have to bear the burden all the time. This is our 8th sanctuary. That's pretty incredible. Oh, and welcome to everyone following on the live stream. Hello. All of our live streams are added to our YouTube channel. We have a Ministry of Skepticism YouTube channel. If you ever want to review this content, go back and watch something, it's all up on our YouTube. Neatly divided into chapters, so it's easy to navigate. You can get right to where you want to get. We're going to have a really wonderful incandescence presentation from Sarah today. That might be something that you'd like to revisit. And Sean, who is in Pennsylvania, and Adam are going to be helping us to upgrade our live stream production. So in the near future, we might start seeing a higher production quality from our live streams. Complete with maybe different angles, hold screens, branded screens. It should be really cool. So thanks you guys for your help with that. Adam is here. Adam, hello, Adam and Sarah. But Sean is not here. Sean is in Pennsylvania. I mentioned Sean. We found Sean, or he found us through a podcast. I was on a rollerblading podcast, but I talked about Ministry of Skepticism, and it caught his interest, and so he looked us up and started following the live streams from Pennsylvania, and he sent us a really nice message on our Instagram account. And he let us know that what he does for a living, he helps people set up their Twitch streams professionally. So it's a good resource for us, and he has offered to help, and so we are taking him up on that. But an interesting thing happened between the last sanctuary and this one. Our Instagram following it hovers around 1,000 followers. And after our last sanctuary, we dipped below 1,000 because a lot of our followers were bots. I don't know if you guys recall, but at one point we had a surge of followers. We got to over 7,000. And so then we've been going through and removing them all because we don't want a whole bunch of bot followers. And it's been a whole process unto itself, but we kind of left it hovering around 1,000 because 1,000 is kind of like this magic threshold where you can go live. Well, because we have so many bot followers, they also keep dropping off periodically as Instagram identifies them, removes their accounts, whatever the case may be. So it keeps dropping, steady drip going down and down. Well, when we dipped under 1,000, we had kind of a panic because we like to live stream and we need that access, that ability. And so Sean, unprovoked, unsolicited, noticed that, and he, from his own Instagram account, put out a plea to his followers. He said, we need 1,000 followers. Ministry of Skepticism, please, will you go follow Ministry of Skepticism? And he also said, and if you like, watch the live stream. He was promoting Ministry of Skepticism to his followers. And I knew this not just because he tagged us in his post, but because we started to see new followers coming in. And they weren't random accounts from Indonesia. They were people with real accounts, with actual posts. And I know that there are real people in Indonesia too, and we welcome all followers. But so this was really incredible and moving to me. And it made me think, why haven't I ever done that? I have a personal account with over 15,000 followers. Thank you, X Games and rollerblading. But I've never used my platform explicitly to endorse what we're doing here or to ask people to support it or to check it out. I repost frequently from that account, but I've never explicitly said, hey, this is something that I'm doing that I think that you should check out. We talk that can come with organized religion or the baggage that we bring into it. And I think sometimes we can be nervous about the association or how people might take it if we talk about it. I feel that too. Religious hesitancy, I call it, as of right now. I'm coining that term, religious hesitancy. But I believe in what we're offering. And if Sean, someone in Pennsylvania who just discovered us on a podcast, thinks enough to share it with his followers, there's no reason why I shouldn't be reaching out to my followers. And so I did. I posted it from my account. And I thought that the followers would start flooding in, and they didn't. That is, until I went to sleep. The next morning, we had a whole page after page of new followers. And as of today, we are back over 1,000 followers. It's great news, and we are live streaming. Sean, thank you. Sean, by the way, also includes Ministry of Skepticism in his bio, on his profile. That is how much he believes in what we're doing here. And Sean's father he just went through surgery. He's dealing with, I think, pancreatic cancer. The surgery went well, but so our thoughts, our prayers, or whatever our version of that is, they're with Sean and his family and his father as they go through this. But there's a lesson here on Valentine's Day in what happened. Sometimes when you're seeking love and support, you have to ask for it. You can't just wait for it. There's no shame in asking for help. The people that love you, that care about you, want to help you. But sometimes it helps if they can just hear it, that you need it, and that you want it. So it's a valuable reminder. Sometimes we just have to reach out and ask for help. It's okay to ask for love. So on this Valentine's Day, let's remember that. Sean, thank you for reminding us of that. The mission of Ministry of Skepticism is to provide an alternative to conventional faith-based religions. We provide a rational approach to spirituality and an evidence-based framework for the contemplation of meaning and purpose, significance and morality. We do not accept that those areas of inquiry should be walled off from scientific investigation. We are spreading the light of scientific skepticism through the promotion of rationality, critical thinking, and scientific inquiry. And we're building a community for people who embrace a reality-based, naturalistic worldview. And for those of us who long for a sense of meaning and purpose and connection. So thank you all for being here and helping us to build that community and that fellowship. The planetary scientist and beloved science communicator, Carl Sagan. Oh, let me see if I can do this. Oh? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. We'll have to go without. But the beloved planetary scientist and science communicator Carl Sagan, he of this book, The Demon-Haunted World, which provides so much inspiration for this entire endeavor here, but he wrote a quote that captures this sentiment beautifully, this idea that it's unnecessary and unnatural to try and separate science from spirituality. And I'd like to invite Michel up to share this quote from Carl Sagan with us. And all of you that we are calling up here to share these quotes and reflections, we have a cord right here. So just be mindful of that. I'm sure we're going to trip over it at some point, but for now, let's just be mindful of that.
Okay. I'm a small guy, so important to, yeah. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. So, science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place on an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricate beauty and the subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined is certainly spiritual. So are our emotions in the presence of great art, of music, or literature, or acts of exemplary selfless courage. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both.
Thank you. Watch your step.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well presented, but I made a mistake there. I've done us a disservice. I forgot to mention, Celina always reminds me, but in the reflection books that you all have, all of these reflections that we're going to share, they are in there, and including that quote. Michel, by the way, he's from Brazil. He's visiting UTD. He is a researcher in mathematics. But so he has an accent. I knew what he was saying there because I've read the quote. I'm familiar with it. But if you missed anything in there, it is in the book also. You can reference that. And we will try to remind you as we go through this what we are reading so that you can follow along at your discretion. Thank you for that, Michel. That was wonderful. And it is a wonderful quote. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both. That's why we're here. We're trying to bring them back together, break through that artificial barrier. We've been talking about the demon-haunted world. This is a nice time to point out that we have these books for sale here. There are ways to support the ministry, what we're doing. We have in the back a place where we are selling the pins. We have these beautiful magnetic pins. If anybody wants to know anything about pins, we have an expert, Suzanne is here, can tell you all about the different kinds of backings, how strong they are or not. If you need 2 hooks or 1, trust me, there's no question she can't answer when it comes to pins. She's been a great resource. And the books are for sale. And these books are really cool because, one, because they're Carl Sagan's book, The Demon-Haunted World, which kind of is a treatise on the importance and the urgency of skepticism in our modern times. He is an eloquent communicator, so he talks about science and the majesty of the natural order of things in beautiful terms. But we've also added a custom stamp, which you won't be able to see here in the lighting, but they are embossed with a seal of the Ministry of Skepticism. So it's a nice little memento, commemorative piece, and it's a nice way to support what we're doing here. Back there we have a QR code for our Venmo, or there is a box for cash. And I want to say something about the cash or the Venmo. We're asking $20 for the pins, $20 for the books, but that is a recommendation. That is not a fixed fee. We understand that we all have different circumstances, and really all we're looking for is a way to provide you a way to support what we're doing. And we will leave it to you to decide what that support looks like, what is comfortable for you or for your means. If you're a student, for instance, and you're on a tight budget, but you want to support the ministry by wearing your pin proudly, then don't leave any money, but take a pin. We want your support. If you can afford $5, then leave $5. That is up to you to decide. And the same thing goes for the books. And if you're my dad and you can afford more, then leave more, by all means. Don't be shy. Everything is appreciated. But I just want that to be clear. Really, all we want is your support, and however that feels comfortable for you. And we thank you for your support. When the mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace presented his monumental works on celestial mechanics to Napoleon, Napoleon marveled at the elegance of the equations, but he asked Laplace why God was never mentioned in the book. And Laplace replied to Napoleon, he said, "Sire, I have no need of that hypothesis." He was able to explain the natural order and motion of things without having to invoke a deity or supernatural powers. We have no need for the God hypothesis here. In the absence of any good evidence, there's no need to invoke or artificially add a supernatural component to things that are adequately described without one. If you could describe planetary motion as Newton did, without having to invoke a God, then there's no need for the hypothesis. If you can understand the descent of man and the astounding variety of life on Earth through evolution, as Darwin did, then there's no need for the God hypothesis. The discoveries in physics, biology, chemistry, and all the sciences are possible without any help from the God hypothesis. And it's our contention that things like love, and meaning and purpose are knowable through science. No added supernatural components are necessary. But now, having said all that, just because there's no good evidence for a God or for any gods, it does not mean that there are not good reasons to believe in God. This is not an atheist organization. Maybe you find meaning and comfort in a personal relationship with God. That's personal, and for each of us to decide on our own. We have no position on the belief or the absence of belief in a God or a deity. And neither is a prerequisite to participation in skepticism or the Ministry of Skepticism. We do not have a fixed set of laws. We emphasize the process, not the position. The positions are for you to decide. We will give you the tools to help get there on your own. And although we have no need for the God hypothesis, and it won't be factored into our teachings, we hold no animus toward it. This is a safe space for the rational exploration of all claims. And as long as you have an open mind, and you're willing to learn the tools for evaluating claims critically, then you're welcome in this sanctuary. I'd like to call up Dorothee to share a reflection on sanctuary and this space, which in some of your books will be page 6. The reflections go in order, so we have a couple of different versions out there, but it shouldn't be that hard to find. It's called Sanctuary in your books.
Yeah, I'm from Belgium, so I have an accent too.
So you can follow along.
Yeah, please. Sanctuary. This is a place of sanctuary. All are welcome here. There are no ideas that are forbidden, no questions that are off limits. Beliefs are personal. Each of us is free to determine how we ascribe value and meaning. In this space, claims are neither accepted nor rejected by decree. We do not offer a fixed set of laws. There is no canon and there are no commandments. We offer patience and fellowship and the tool to guide you in your own pursuit of knowledge. Skepticism is a process, not a position. Believe what you will. What is private and personal is your own business. But for anything that can be measured or quantified, or that you hope to have validated or affirmed, so long as you're willing to follow the evidence in good faith, wherever it may lead, then you are welcome in this space. You will find sanctuary here. Let it be so.
Let it be so. Awesome. Watch your step.
I'm not.
Oh.
Yeah, I will step away.
I should also point out that we've given out, I think you all have programs as well, which gives just a brief overview, outline of kind of the agenda here, the order of things. So as we talk about sanctuary and we talk about each of us on our own personal journey, free to explore ideas and create our own path, find our own way through our beliefs and our values. One of the most meaningful things that we can do here is provide a space for people to share their stories, their personal experience with faith or skepticism, or any of the things that we talk about here at the Ministry of Skepticism. Today, to share her story, is Sarah Monier. Close enough? Dorothee? Ah, very good. Yeah? Oh, Monier. Whatever. Americans are always so eager to like really show off. Hey, I'm speaking French. Monier. But we're excited to give this forum to Sarah to let her share her story. So Sarah, we will welcome you up to present your Incandescence.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Sarah. Before I begin, I want to be clear that I'm speaking about my own experience with faith. This is an account of what my journey with organized religion looked like for me, and it's not meant to criticize or diminish anyone who continues to practice or find meaning in their faith. I grew up as the eldest daughter in a deeply religious household. From an early age, there was a clear expectation of who I was supposed to be. When I was 10, I started covering my hair. At 13, I covered my face. These were presented as decisions that I was making, and at the time, that's how they felt. I wanted to do what was right and make my family proud. In the culture that I grew up in, daughters, especially eldest daughters, were raised to be a symbol of obedience and modesty and a reflection of the family. How the daughter behaves is how the family is perceived. And my family wanted daughters that made them look good by following the rules. For a while, I was comfortable in that role. There's a certain comfort that comes when you do what's expected of you, especially as a child. But when I was 16, I chose differently. I removed my face veil. There was no yelling or confrontation. Instead, there was complete silence. My mother stopped speaking to me for days, and I was filled with overwhelming guilt. That was the first time I really felt the boundaries of my independence. I realized that my choices were only supported when they matched what was expected. It took me many more years to find the courage to remove my headscarf completely. I want to be clear that I'm not against women dressing modestly or covering themselves. I don't believe it's inherently oppressive or wrong, and I believe women should be able to dress however they feel is right to them and freely without any judgment. For me, however, there was an expectation around the veil, and it was never really my choice. It was something I had to comply with in order to continue earning the approval of my parents. It's also important for me to say that my family's interpretation of Islam, which is the religion I grew up with, was especially conservative. What I experienced is not universal. Many Muslims grow up in far more open and supportive environments than I did. A large portion of my childhood and teen years was spent thinking about good and evil, heaven and hell, whether I was doing enough, believing enough, being faithful enough. It was constant background anxiety about where I stood in the eyes of God at any given moment. Religion shaped every aspect of my life and my personality. What I learned, what I wore, how I spoke, and my future were all related to my faith. I was homeschooled for most of my life. My education, my social circle, and even the futures I could imagine for myself were all filtered through my faith. When I finished high school at 17, the expected path was an online religious university, a continuation of this same environment I had grown up in. At the time, it felt like my choice. But I continued to long for something more. I didn't know exactly what more meant. I just knew that I wanted to see the world beyond the boundaries I had been raised with. Eventually, I was able to convince my mother to allow me to attend secular college. College was life-changing for me. I was exposed to new people, new ideas, and ways of living that began to challenge my set ways of thinking. There wasn't a single moment where everything changed. It was more gradual. The more I encountered perspectives outside of my upbringing, the more I began to ask questions. I met women who spoke freely, women who disagreed with authority figures, women who planned careers. I met people who treated questions as normal, not dangerous. They asked questions I had never heard spoken aloud. They disagreed openly. They challenged professors. I didn't leave the religion I was raised in all at once. For years, I stayed even as the space between what I felt and what I was told to accept kept getting wider. I didn't know how to question these beliefs out loud. In our community, obedience was praised. Certainty in God was admired. Doubt was dangerous. So I learned to keep my questions and doubts quiet so that eventually I barely admitted them to myself. One of the most liberating parts of my journey was turning to science as a framework for understanding reality. As a child, I was taught to reject scientific theories like evolution outright. They were seen as threats to the beliefs of the religion I followed, so they were automatically labeled as wrong. But when I started to read scientific work for myself, I saw a system that was built on careful observation, testing, and revision, and a process that religion could not offer. Science offered me a way to ask questions and demand evidence. It didn't ask for unquestioning acceptance. You weren't scolded or made to feel guilty of uncertainty. You were encouraged to examine it. For the first time, I felt I was allowed to follow a line of thought wherever it went, even if it was uncomfortable. Science gave me the permission to say, I don't know, without fear. That mindset slowly chipped away at the foundation of faith I had grown up with. Of course, growth is rarely easy. The world I grew up in didn't just disappear overnight just because my thinking began to change. I remember in the last semester at college, my older brother removed the battery from my car one morning so I couldn't drive to class. He told me that women belonged at home, that what I was doing was sinful. I needed to cover more, lower my gaze, keep quiet, and obey. I was a straight-A student, and the thought of missing class made me extremely anxious. That day, I realized that my education wasn't just about a degree. It was about freedom. It was about having a life that wasn't confined to someone else's expectations of what a woman should be. For a long time after I left organized religion, I was angry. I blamed my parents for the fear I carried and the independence I felt I had lost. But as I learned more about human psychology and belief, my anger softened. We as humans create stories and beliefs based on our human needs and human fears. I actually believe that religion is one of the best places to learn about human desires and our greatest fears. Skepticism challenges those instincts. It asks us to examine the foundation beneath our convictions, not to mock or destroy them, but to test them. Skepticism for me wasn't about rejecting everything I had been taught. It was about learning how to evaluate those teachings. It gave me a framework for examining claims, including the ones I had grown up with, and that framework brought me so much relief. Not because skepticism gave me easy answers, but because it removed the fear surrounding uncertainty. The beacon we're discussing today is self-awareness, and one of its core principles is I am curious. Curiosity is an act of autonomy. In many rigid systems, including the religion I grew up in, curiosity and questioning is discouraged. Science looks at curiosity as strength and refuses intellectual confinement. Science also normalizes and builds progress on fallibility, another one of the core principles we're talking about today. Every theory is provisional. Every conclusion can be revised, and admitting you might be wrong is not a weakness. Today, I'm pursuing a PhD in cognitive neuroscience and studying how the human mind works, including how perception and reasoning shape our beliefs. In many ways, it feels like a continuation of the questions that began years ago. Studying the brain has only reinforced something that I learned through experience. Humans like to have meaning. We're excellent at pattern recognition, but not great at interpreting what those patterns mean. We crave certainty. I started to understand that every person is shaped by a unique network of culture, family, biology, and history. Our sense of self emerges within those structures before we ever have the tools to question them, and it is up to us to cognitively override that and apply skepticism and critical thinking to every aspect of our lives. Science gave me liberation. In scientific spaces, pushing back, asking for clarification, and challenging assumptions are part of the process. Learning that disagreement can be constructive, not disrespectful, changed how I saw my own voice as a woman. The traits that once felt dangerous in me, like curiosity, persistence, even stubbornness, became assets when I became a scientist. Walking away from the religion I was raised in was not easy. It cost me comfort, it strained my relationships, it forced me to rebuild my sense of identity from the ground up. But it gave me something I had never fully experienced before: intellectual freedom. The freedom to admit uncertainty, the freedom to choose my education, the freedom to define my role as a woman, the freedom to question, the freedom to think. And that freedom has been worth everything. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. What an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was really, really wonderful. And, you know, it speaks to exactly what we're doing here. And because this is not an atheist organization, it's not just about the movement away from a faith-based worldview. It's not just about liberation from oppressive ideology, but it's also what you're replacing it with. There are many secular alternatives to faith-based religions. And they preach love and righteousness and justice, and those are all noble causes. But what we are offering is unique. It is an alternative approach to knowledge, using science and skepticism to ask questions and evaluate the answers, to test them for the reliability. Many faith-based religions can feel incompatible with curiosity. There are questions that will run into walls. Leaders or believers will tell you, don't ask that question, or they'll give you unsatisfying answers. For those that are curious, God did it is not always entirely satisfying. So we endeavor to create a space where curiosity is encouraged, All questions are welcome. And we go on the journey of discovery together and follow it wherever it may lead, uncomfortable or not. Because as skeptics, we're not committed to the positions, only the process. Our positions will change with the evidence. Thank you for sharing that. Really, really wonderful. And that speaks to this question that we get all the time. Why a religion? Why are we doing this? Well, there you go. That's why we're doing it. Because when someone like Sarah, a young person, who starts to exercise these doubts and is looking for answers or alternatives to the only way of knowing that she was raised to believe, there's a lot of other organizations out there to capture someone like Sarah. They're on college campuses. They have tables out in the quad. You can walk by and they'll shout at you and bring you over and have a discussion with you. Where is our table? Who is out there capturing these students, these young minds, and giving them a path to reason? I'll tell you, no one's doing it effectively, if they're doing it at all. And there is no better tool for communicating ideas and values that are important to you than religion. That ultimately is the answer to why a religion, because there is no better tool for disseminating and communicating the values and ideas that are important. These ideas, a naturalistic worldview, is important to us. We want a way to share that within our community, to our children, and to spread that out into the world because we see it as a collective good. The world would be a better place with more rational thinkers. We would vote for and implement better policies. When removed from our passions and our emotional biases, we can adopt policies in our best interest. And I have been a practicing capital S skeptic for a long time. 30 years probably, something like that. Almost exactly as long as I started being a professional rollerblader. I've never had opportunities to talk about skepticism like I've had since we started this. Celina and I try to open a bank account, and the banker, when we tell him what we're doing, he says, "What is that?" Bingo, opportunity to talk about it. And because it's such a cool and interesting thing, and because there's such a market for it, the conversations are always welcome. And when they're not, they'll let you know, like when we saw the Baptist minister at the Buddhist temple. And that's fine. But there are plenty of people out there who want to hear about this. Michel, who read the Carl Sagan quote, saw a flyer on the UTD campus. He doesn't know any of us. He just showed up, sight unseen. And I guess she thought enough of it to come back. So we must be doing something right. There is an appetite for this, an audience. That's why we exist. It's why a religion. Speaking of the Baptist minister, when we told this story last time, but we ran into a group of people at the Buddhist temple, and they said that they were all a part of a Baptist church downtown. We said, "Oh, we're a part of a religion." I think I foolishly said we were starting a new religion. So that sparked an idea in a conversation that we have a messaging problem. And so as we evolve as an organization, kind of the way we talk about it evolves as well. And the insight that we got is that there's no reason to talk about a new religion. It's not helpful in the way that we communicate this because it automatically turns people off. They have their preconceived ideas about what that means. It gives you visions of cult leaders and religious zealots. It's just not the image that we want to portray. No one needs to know, no one cares if it's a new religion. What is important about what we're doing is that we belong to something. We belong to a group, a non-religious group that promotes a non-religious approach to spirituality and meaning. That has been helpful for me to think about it in those terms. And it has improved the way that I talk about it so that I don't unnecessarily turn people off right at the jump. And by the way, we are officially an organization. I mentioned that we tried to open a bank account. Well, we couldn't do it because we weren't a nonprofit yet, but we are now. We have officially filed our articles of incorporation. Yep. So the Ministry of Skepticism is officially a 501c3 nonprofit. Dad, all that money you're donating, you can write it off now. Thank you. Congratulations. And it's a good time to remind you that we do have the books and the pins back there to support this nonprofit. So we have a lot to be grateful for. I'm joking about it, but really it means so much, and we are so grateful for all of your support. Being here is the greatest sign of support that we can ask for. So thank you for that. And in the spirit of gratitude, we have in our reflection books, we have a reflection that we call gratitude. I'd like to invite Danny up to share this reflection of gratitude with us. Oh, it's page 10, more or less, in your reflection books.
Good morning.
Is it?
Almost, yeah. I was going to tell Arlo, if I would have known that bringing donuts would have garnered me such influence and friends, probably would have started that a lot earlier, right? So,
Danny, our next step, now that we're incorporated, is we have to come up with bylaws, because the next thing we have to do is file with the IRS to get tax-exempt status. You are right at the top of the organizational flowchart.
okay, great.
He that brings donuts.
Yes. Okay.
You are calling the shots, for sure.
Well, great. So gratitude, right? We have so much to be grateful for. The very fact that we are here, that any of us should exist, despite the extraordinary odds against it, is truly a miracle. And the fact that we are here in this space together, sharing this experience of communion and fellowship, is a gift worth cherishing. So let us take a moment to be thoughtful and reflect upon this blessing, to enjoy the fellowship of friends and family and neighbors as we come together to celebrate the light of reason, the virtues of skepticism, and the miracle of existence. Let it be so.
So, thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're about to take a short break, about a 10-minute break. You can get coffee. I think we still have some coffee. I'm not sure if the donuts have made it this long. You can use the restroom. We've also got, now would be a good time to check out the books. And this is not just a sales pitch now. I've done that enough, but I really am proud of the embossing in these things. I think that they look really cool. So go ahead and feel free to check it out. I hope that you guys will take a look at it because I think it's neat. And in the spirit of gratitude, we have new guests here that it's their first time at the sanctuary. We have some old friends that have come together. So in the spirit of gratitude, if you see someone you haven't seen in a while, take a minute to catch up. If you see someone you've never met before, introduce yourself. Let's share the spirit of community and fellowship, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Thanks, guys. Gosh, can you guys hear that? I don't know did any of you get outside to look out the window? It's coming down even harder than it was before, and I thought it was really raining hard when we got here. Well, I hope you are enjoying each other's company because we might be here a while. We're going to have to stretch the content here. More filler. Well, I hope you guys got a chance to talk a little bit. It looked like everybody was socializing. That's great to see. Did we lose people on this side? It looks unbalanced. It looks like everybody's gone over to one side. I feel like if this was a wedding, one family just didn't show up. Yeah. What? I wish that I could, but we are bound by the HDMI cable. We tried to move it a little bit. I can probably get out here and move around a little bit, but I'll lose my notes. We'll try and mix it up. In fact, maybe during this next presentation, Zach can come up and do his performance. He mentioned before, was it mime or improv? Mime or improv? Nice, nice. Okay. So every sanctuary is an opportunity to do exactly what we're doing, to come together, enjoy each other's company, bond together as a community. And it truly is a blessing, and we are right to celebrate it and to express our gratitude. What's that? Huh? Oh, okay. Sorry, Celina's got her speakers hooked up. She's listening to a podcast. You have to disregard that. Oh, it was me. Okay. At least she's got good taste in podcasts. But even as we celebrate our blessings and express our gratitude for all the things that we have to be thankful for, we should also be mindful of those who couldn't be here, or those who are going through challenges or struggles. We talked about Sean's father and his surgeries. Among this group, certainly, we know people who are going through their own challenges, or we are people dealing with our own struggles. And it's through no fault of our own. We don't choose our afflictions. Each of our fates is tied to a random roll of the dice. So accordingly, we should balance our gratitude with compassion. To read the reflection on page 11, for compassion is Jessica. Jessica, we'll call you up to lead us in this reflection.
Can I say one quick thing? Thank you, Arlo, for asking me to read. I appreciate it. Compassion. Even as we recount the things that we have to be grateful for, and there are many, let us also observe how much of our fate is determined.
The rain is now
Really project. Really punch it up. No problem. Even as we recount the things that we have to be grateful for, and there are many, let us also observe how much of our fate is determined by circumstances outside of our control. There is not one among us who deserves credit for choosing their genes or their parents or where or when they were born, and neither is there one among us who deserves blame for their burdens or their afflictions or their shortcomings. No one deserves praise or blame for their being. Let us view the world honestly and see each other truly and recognize that all are deserving of compassion and grace. Let it be so. I love that so much. Ooh, here you go, girl.
Yeah, thank you. Well done. We are really competing now with the acoustics in here in the rain. For anyone here that is a believer, if you could do us a favor, put in a call and ask if God could turn it down for a second just so we get through the service here. Hello. Thank you. Nice. So we talked a lot about religion. This is a non-religious, religious movement. But right there in the name is Ministry of Skepticism. So with equal balance to ministry is also skepticism. So what is skepticism? Because even more than the religious aspect is the skeptical aspect. As Sarah said, it's not just about leaving a faith-based approach to knowledge. It's about gaining a scientific approach. an evidence-based approach. So what is skepticism? So to help illuminate that for us, we're going to call up my daughter, LuLu, to talk to us a little bit about skepticism and help us to understand what it is.
Where's my thing? Awesome. Okay. Skepticism is a process, not a position. Specifically, it is a process rooted in the scientific method to assess the validity of claims. It is an approach to evaluating claims that emphasizes empirical evidence, logical reasoning, methodological rigor, and openness to revision. At its core, scientific skepticism asks, what is the quality of the evidence? Are alternative explanations ruled out? Are cognitive biases, incentives, or errors influencing conclusions? Can the claim be independently replicated or falsified? Put simply, skepticism is the withholding of judgment. One of the reasons I love being part of the scientific community is that I'm surrounded by people who are comfortable acknowledging the limits of their knowledge. They're not ashamed of what they do not know. Instead, they treat it as the starting point for discovery, an opportunity to keep learning, investigating, and building our collective understanding. It's very normal in scientific spaces to hear people say things like, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I'd have to look into that. And that kind of intellectual humility is actually a foundation of skepticism. Outside of those environments, I find this mindset much rarer. People often express strong confidence about things that are extremely complex, uncertain, and far outside their expertise. And this isn't due to a lack of intelligence. It's because our brains are wired to prefer certainty, and most of us were never trained to be comfortable with uncertainty. Much like with scientific training, practicing skepticism teaches us to sit with that discomfort. It helps us learn to say and truly mean, I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out. And it's okay if there aren't clear answers. In this way, through practicing skepticism, your perspective can be shifted to that of a scientist, even without the formal training. One of the beautiful things about building a skeptical community is that we are creating a space where it's safe to acknowledge what we don't know. Instead of pretending to have all the answers, we can work together to ask better questions, seek better evidence, and gradually build more accurate understandings of ourselves and reality. Before attending a summer research program at the Max Planck Institute in Berlin with legendary thinkers and scientists last June, I was feeling anxious and nervous about the limits of my knowledge. But then I reframed my thinking and ended up writing a few sentences that I think captured this whole idea nicely. Quote, do not fear looking dumb. What a beautiful thing it is to not know everything and to have the opportunity to learn and connect with another. By asking questions, you open your mind to new information and new people. End quote. Skepticism frees us from the pressure to know everything. It allows us to admit our limits, remain curious, and move closer together to truth. Move closer to truth together, excuse me. Okay, I know it's Valentine's Day and we are all feeling the love, so I want to tie that into this. You're gonna have to hear me out. Skepticism is an act of love. Not romantic love, but love for truth, love for reality, love for other people, and love for our own minds. Love requires honesty. Honesty requires confronting reality, and skepticism is the process that helps us do that. The heart of skepticism is a love for truth that is stronger than our desire for comfort. Skepticism is also a respect for reality and for other people's minds. Instead of trying to win arguments or impose beliefs, skeptics try to understand what is actually true. Skepticism is also rooted in caring about people. Many pseudoscientific claims and practices exploit fear, hope, and vulnerability. Skepticism helps protect people from being misled or harmed. So really, skepticism isn't cynical or cold. It's actually hopeful. It's rooted in the belief that together we can get closer to truth. And skepticism is not about doubting the world. It's about caring enough to understand it honestly. And while we're at it, skepticism is also not denialism. A common question that people ask is, okay, you're a skeptic, so does that mean you don't believe in anything? No, we believe in what is supported by evidence. We follow where the evidence takes us. Skeptics are not flat earthers, moon landing deniers, Holocaust deniers, or vaccine deniers. Those people are deniers of evidence, the exact opposite of skeptics. All of those topics are extremely supported by evidence and well documented. In those cases, people latch onto an idea and seek out resources that confirm their idea. They start with a conclusion and look for anything that confirms it. Skeptics do not start with a conclusion. Again, we see where the evidence takes us and form our beliefs based on that. And I want to emphasize that where the evidence takes us is ever-changing as new evidence is provided. If credible, verifiable evidence that challenges our current understandings of the world comes about, we update our beliefs accordingly. In our world, we are presented with claims seemingly endlessly from all different types of sources, and it can be difficult to discern what might be true and what might not. Skepticism is a tool that helps guide us through the bullshit of claims and helps us understand how to identify claims that are well supported with evidence and therefore closer to the truth. And it's easy to be skeptical towards things that you already don't believe in or aren't invested in. Maybe something like Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina goop company, where many things are sold, including jade and rose quartz eggs that you insert vaginally, and they can amazingly balance hormones and regulate menstrual cycles and probably cure everything as well. But so something like that, it's probably easier to question. Although, for whatever reason, there does seem to be a large following for that, so I don't know how true that even is, but maybe for this group. But it's more difficult to question things that we are invested in, or things that we might not even think to question. For example, the notion of take your vitamins. You might think that that's a neutral or even helpful statement, but in reality, the evidence shows that taking vitamins, if you are not deficient in them, either produces no added benefit or can be harmful. It can even cause organ damage and really serious issues. Also, vitamins and supplements are not regulated by the FDA for safety and efficacy, and so a lot of times you don't even know if you're getting the thing that you are trying to take. So this is kind of one of those things. You may not even think to question it, and you may offer that advice to other people or your own children, but it can actually be detrimental. And so as skeptics, we have to be especially sensitive to our blind spots, the things that we don't even think to question. And if you think that you don't believe dumb or incorrect stuff, I guarantee you that there are things that you believe right now that are not supported by evidence. And so I encourage you to think more and look into them as much as you can. And you must remain humble and open to the idea that there are things that we don't know and that we don't yet have complete knowledge of. When you acknowledge that you can be wrong about things, that you don't know everything, you leave yourself open to new information and better evidence, which brings you closer to truth. And that is the greatest form of self-love. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you for that, LuLu. I always hold up LuLu as Exhibit A. Because before any of this, I mentioned that I've been a practicing skeptic for over 30 years, or for around 30 years, but that is even longer than LuLu's been alive. So I raised her with these ideas and these values. If you want a case study for what a life can look like raised with skeptical values, here's Exhibit A. And how proud am I as a father? But also I feel validated and vindicated that you can raise and create a good life modeled after skeptical values. A fulfilling life, full of love and meaningful, deep relationships and connections. But also a curious life, inquisitive, searching for answers. And also a PhD candidate, finding answers. I've told the story of Sean on our live stream and how we posted this, we put out this call for help. We need followers. Well, one of my followers responded with some constructive criticism. She said, it always makes me sick whenever I see your post. They're just big walls of text and the punctuation is all over the place. She's like, I do this for a living. I help companies with their social media posts. And I could have responded and said, hey, get over it. I know what I'm doing. All the posts that you see there on the Ministry of Skepticism, I put them up there. This isn't my first rodeo. I've been doing this a long time too. And by the way, I don't need your opinion. We're doing just fine. Thanks, but no thanks. But I didn't say that. Much like LuLu when she was nervous about going to the conference in Berlin, and she reframed her thinking and she wrote the wonderful passage for herself. That going with incomplete knowledge is not something to be afraid of. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. What I told her was, thank you. There's a lot that I don't know about this space. I freely admit to my ignorance, and I welcome any input that will help. Send me some tips. And she did. One of the beauties of being a skeptic is when we get an opportunity to practice and exercise and flex our skeptical ideals. We go against our natural instincts. Defensively, reflexively, I wanted to lash out. I felt attacked and criticized. But that was purely emotional. She was right. There's a lot that I don't know. And as a skeptic, we become trained to calm down and quiet down our emotions and our impulsive reactions, and to let our more reasoned approach rise to the surface, to open ourselves to new information, and to help when people are offering. It feels good whenever we get to behave in accordance with our skeptical values. One of the disciplines here is that I am fallible. Sarah talked about it in her Incandescence. But as skeptics, we learn to value that. The opportunity to admit when we're wrong. It's a demonstration of our skeptical values. And it's an opportunity for us to grow. So LuLu, thank you for sharing that story. You know, while we're talking about skepticism, what I have here, skepticism largely is an endeavor to identify the ways that we fool ourselves and can trick ourselves. And largely that is cataloged through logical fallacies and cognitive biases. And there are a whole list of these things. You've heard of a lot of them. Ad hominem fallacy, straw man, confirmation bias. This is a whole deck of cards that was created by School of Thought, schoolofthought.org, devoted to that. Half the deck I don't know how if you'll be able to see this, but half the deck in yellow are cognitive biases and half the deck here are logical fallacies. Each card is a different one. It's a great way to kind of familiarize yourself with these ideas. We're not going to go through the deck, obviously. Unless it keeps raining, we might have to stretch it out a little bit. But for right now, I'd like to call up Augustine. I'm targeting young people here. Yeah, come on up. And Emmett. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to have each of you draw a card. Pick a card, any card. Celina, where's the other mic? I'm going to let them share the other mic so we can get this on camera.
Just hang on to it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start with Augustine. The yellow ones here look like they're cognitive biases, so just pick any card out there. Hold on to that for a second. And Emmett, I'm going to let you pick out one of the logical fallacies. Pick a card, any card. Okay, and now, is that thing on? We got a solid green light? So, Augustine, if you don't mind, let's share your cognitive bias with the congregation here.
Cool. Mine says self-serving bias. It says you believe your failures are due to external factors, yet you're personally responsible for your success.
Adam, what? Do you have a question? All right, Augustine, one more time, because I want to make sure I hear it too.
Oh, yeah. It says self-serving bias. You believe your failures are due to external factors, yet you're personally responsible for your successes.
Ah, did y'all get that? Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it says, many of us enjoy unearned privileges, luck, or advantages that others don't. It's easy to tell ourselves that we deserve these things, whilst blaming circumstance when things don't go our way.
Yep. And, yep, I don't want to, at the risk of overly politicizing this, but this is sort of a common approach to there's sort of a conservative belief that people that are successful, right, are responsible for their success, and people that are less successful is just because of lack of effort or lack of will. That is a self-serving bias. Thank you for sharing that. All right, let's see what cognitive bias, right? You have a cognitive bias?
I have fallacy.
Logical fallacy, duh. Thank you.
Mine is burden of proof. It says, saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with someone else to disprove. And it also says, Bertrand declares that the teapot is at this very moment in orbit around the sun between the Earth and Mars, and that because no one can prove him wrong, his claim is therefore a valid one.
So the burden of proof, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Did y'all get that? I'll take that. You can give the mic to Celina. Thank you guys. Well done. But so that's just cool. I mean, this is largely what skepticism is identifying these things. And it's important to point out, I've mentioned kind of this conservative idea that, you know, that we're responsible for our success and other people are responsible for their failures. But these things are most useful not for pointing them out in other people's failures or flaws or arguments. It's identifying these biases in ourselves and these fallacies in ourselves. Because we are most guilty of falling prey to these kinds of biases and fallacies. That burden of proof, I have a tattoo. They mentioned Bertrand Russell, right, and the celestial teapot. But the idea is that the person making the claim is responsible for providing evidence for that claim. The burden is not on the people saying, well, I don't believe that, to prove that it's not true. If you're making the claim, you got to prove it. You can't prove a negative. These are a fun way to engage with these ideas, but also just a demonstration of skepticism, what it is. Looks like each time I switch pages, this thing goes out of presentation, so we'll just bring it back. Great. So now I'm going to give what we call an illumination. This is kind of our version of a sermon. Coolest religion ever. How's my hair? So I've mentioned a couple of times here my previous life as a professional rollerblader. And this has been coming up a lot recently. I was contacted within the last few weeks by ESPN. I participated in the very first X Games back in 1995. And I won the second X Games in 1996. And they are doing a 30 by 30, 30 for 30, right? 30 for 30, is that what it is? You guys are familiar with that documentary series? Zach, you must know it. Great series of documentaries that ESPN puts out. I think they originally did it for like their 30th anniversary, so they made 30 documentaries. But they're so well produced and so well loved that they've just kept it going. And they're anything sports related, but they can be, it can be about a World Series winning baseball team, but it can be obscure topics, about some hiker or something. But so they are doing one about the first X Games. The first X Games and the first Winter X Games. Well, I was a part of that. And not to be too immodest, but I was a pretty big part of the first one because rollerblading was really big at the time. There were three main action sports: rollerblading, skateboarding, bike riding. It was me, Tony Hawk, and Matt Hoffman. And we were featured prominently in the promotions for the first X Games. And so the producers called me and they said that we're putting together this documentary and they wanted to interview me. And so we talked about it. And a big part of the conversation was the beef between skateboarding and rollerblading. Because if you don't know, there was a beef. Skateboarders don't like rollerbladers. And if you don't know, rollerblading's not in the X Games anymore. It was dropped unceremoniously, and maybe, some will contend, the skateboarders had something to do with it. But this isn't the only rollerblading thing that has popped up from my past. Around the same time, back in the heyday of rollerblading, I was also interviewed for a skateboarding magazine called Big Brother. Big Brother they were the most outrageous, countercultural, iconoclastic magazine out there. They had articles, this is crazy to say, literally that taught you how to kill yourself. I mean, they were really trying to do the most extreme things that they could. Freely promoted sex and drugs, and this is going to a young skateboarding audience. And this might not be surprising to anyone. They were published by Larry Flint, the publisher of Hustler, the pornographic magazines. They reveled in this kind of controversy. They were constantly in the news, but there was no bad news for them. This is what they wanted. The more press they got, the more teenagers were attracted to it. And I will admit that I loved it. As a rebellious young person participating and advocating for a rebel sport, I was excited about the lawlessness of it, challenging conventions. As extreme and insane as it was, there was just something really cool about sticking a middle finger to society. And so when they had their 69th issue, what they called the worst issue ever, they decided they were going to interview a rollerblader. And I was that rollerblader. The most visible, notable rollerblader at the time. And because I was already a huge fan of the magazine, even though they constantly trashed our sport, I said, yeah, let's do it. I'm in. All my friends said, oh, don't do it. They're obviously just bringing you in to make you look like an ass. They're going to make fun of you. But I didn't care. I wanted to be in that magazine. It's such an important and influential part of my experience. And furthermore, I'm pretty comfortable in my ability to represent myself. And so we did the interview. They called it the Rollerblader Hunter. The interviewers dressed up like Steve Irwin. We went to spots. They had me do tricks, and they would jump out of the bushes and try and tackle me. For the actual interview, they asked me things like, what other hobbies do you have besides rollerblading? They gave me some options. Interior designing, designing women's clothing, dancing with other men, or gardening. So they were out to get me. But we also had a really interesting and meaningful conversation. In and around all those barbs and jabs, a real conversation flourished, to the extent that the guy who interviewed me, who was the editor of the magazine, Dave Carney, he reached out to me last week. And he said, I was revisiting that issue. And he said, I think it's one of the best issues we ever made. And he said, it's largely because of the conversation we had in there. He said, you handled yourself really well. And he asked me, he said, would you be interested in doing another interview? Now looking back, he has a Substack called Food on Drunk. And he said, no gay innuendos, just two adults talking about toys, basically, skateboards and rollerblades. And of course, I said enthusiastically, yes, let's do it. But I went back and I read that article again to refresh myself. And I asked Lou, I'm like, have you ever seen this? So I brought it out, and it's on her nightstand waiting to be read.
There's a whole 2-page spread of him on the floor, his head being pushed down. They're pulling his cheek.
Fish hooking me, yeah.
Yeah, fish hooking him. It's crazy.
It's pretty wild. But also in that article, since it's a skateboarding magazine, they asked about a famous, well-known OG skateboarder named Jesse Martinez, back from the Dogtown days in Venice Beach. I was based in Venice Beach. In our first World Championships, even before the X Games, NIST, the National Inline Skate Series, were in Venice Beach. And every year at our championships in Venice Beach, Jesse Martinez would come out, this OG skateboarder, immersed deep in Venice culture, surfing and skateboarding. He would come out shouting, where's Arlo Eisenberg? Where's MFing Arlo Eisenberg? I'm going to kill that MFer. Where is that freaking derogatory name for gay people? And then he would find me and he'd say, Arlo, I'm going home to get my gun, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to shoot you, and I'm going to kill you. And he was insane, verifiably. It didn't sound like a joke. And then he would leave, and everybody would say, Arlo, you've got to go. You can't stay here. Well, what am I going to do? Leave the World Championships? I won, by the way, the first World Championships. But it happened every year for 4 years. We came back to Venice Beach. Every year, Jesse would come. Where's MF and Arlo Eisenberg? Threatened to kill me. And then he'd go home. But this is the backdrop of rollerblading and skateboarding at that time. When I say there was a beef between skateboarding and rollerblading, this is what it looked like. Against this backdrop, I got a letter, a handwritten letter, from an acquaintance from the Dallas area. This is before Eisenberg Skate Park. We had our own family skate park for 15 years here in the Metroplex in Plano. But so I knew people in and around the local Dallas action sports scene, skateboarders, like Mike Crum, pro skateboarder from Dallas, and his circle of friends. Someone from that circle of friends, a mutual acquaintance, our fathers actually know each other from the design industry, but he wrote me a handwritten letter. And he questioned my love for rollerblading. He said, I don't believe that 20 years from now, you're still going to be doing this. His implication was that you don't love rollerblading. That's not possible to love rollerblading the way that he loves skateboarding. There's something inauthentic about the thing that I chose to be passionate about. Not that we choose our passion, the thing that I was passionate about. It wasn't a real love. And I think email existed at this time. I don't know why he wrote me a handwritten letter, but this idea was so important to him. It was so important that he communicated it to me, that I knew how he felt about my feelings about the thing that I loved. He had to write this letter and get it off his chest and deliver it to me. I ran into him 25 years later. I was with my dad at Communion, this place in a great coffee shop and restaurant that used to be in Richardson. He was bartending there. It was strange for me because I remembered this letter. I hadn't seen him for 25 years. And we're being cool, talking, catching up. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, remember that crazy letter you sent me? I asked him what he's doing now. He's into mountain biking. Cool. I don't know if he still skateboards. But in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Winter Clash, the biggest rollerblading event in Europe, with my daughter, with my girlfriend, with her daughter. My daughter rollerblades herself now. I go to the skate park. I get to skate with her. We have a grind box in our garage, which we get to session. I get to teach her some of the tricks I used to do. I still skate. I still love my sport. There's something interesting about this attitude, this gatekeeping attitude that you can judge the validity of another person's feelings. Tell them what they can love or not love, or how deeply or completely they can love something. For whatever reason, he felt qualified to pass that judgment on me, on my ability to love. And this reminds me of another kind of spiritual gatekeeping. When Christians, and no offense to Christians, you can say this about any religion. In America, that's the one we happen to be closest to, so it's the thing that comes up. And by the way, this is not true of all Christians, right? When we say Christian, that's not a monolithic thing. There are all kinds of Christians. But certainly there is a flavor of Christian that can be incredulous that non-believers can be moral without God. Anyone who ever expresses any doubt about the existence of a deity or expresses openly their disbelief, they invariably will hear the question, well, where do you get your morality from? And the implication there, what they believe about you, is that you don't have a moral compass. Because it must come from God. Further, they doubt that it's even possible to love completely without God. Just like the skateboarder, somehow our love is less, or inadequate, or incomplete. John 4:7-8 says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." This is a passage that's cited as evidence for this, or justification for this belief. That God is love. Without God, we cannot know love. So these kinds of moral judgments, it's great that Emmett pulled out the card, the burden of proof. Because the burden is not on us to prove that we don't need God's love or belief in God to justify our morality. If you're claiming that we need God's blessing or that we need to know God, then the burden is on you to defend that claim. These are moral judgments that are passed on us without evidence. And as such, they carry little weight here, within these walls. It is possible within our framework to understand our capacity to love from a naturalistic perspective. And this is what Sarah was talking about. We are not just rejecting a religious basis for understanding, in this case something about the nature of love, but we are replacing it with a naturalistic approach to understanding. That includes insights from biology, chemistry, neuroscience, psychology, and even philosophy. We've all heard of dopamine and endorphins, the things that are happening in our brains. Certainly our neuroscientists are intimately familiar with these ideas and how I'm going to misrepresent them. But as a refresher, dopamine is the thing that washes over your brains and creates a sense of euphoria. It creates focused attention and powerful cravings. It is the chemical associated with romance and, interestingly, what else? Addiction. They're laughing at me. They're like, stay in your lane. But this is our lane, right? We are looking for empirical, natural explanations for the things that we encounter. If we're asking a question about what is love, where does it come from? If not from some divine creator, where does it come from? Well, we understand it from a natural perspective. Chemicals in our brains. And if dopamine is associated with this hot, passionate, new love that you might discover when you're out at a rave and like find, okay, some hot new guy or girl. If dopamine is associated with that, some kind of hot, passionate love, well then endorphins are associated with safety and warmth and stability. But the point is that all these things are regulated and mediated by chemicals in our brains. And those aren't the only ones. Oxytocin is associated with bonding and trust. This is what's released, the chemical that's released when we touch each other, when we're close, during intimacy, but also through breastfeeding and childbirth. This is what bonds us to our children. It doesn't come from anywhere out in the universe. It is built into our brains, into our physiology. Vasopressin is associated with long-term bonding. Serotonin is associated with early romance and obsession. On down the list. All these things, these features that feel so important and so natural to us, they are dictated by processes in our bodies and our minds. And we know the areas of the brains associated with all these chemicals and how they interact. I'll let you ask them about those in your own time. I don't have to go into it here. But it includes areas associated with reward and motivation, pleasure, anticipation, goal direction, valuation, decision making. And this goes back further than just us. If you need further evidence of the natural origins of these feelings and our emotions, you need to look no further than other mammals. Primates form bonds through touching like we do. They have grooming rituals. They demonstrate behaviors like grief, social reconciliation after conflicts. But the roots go back further than primates. This applies to all mammals. The oxytocin that we talked about, that creates the bond between a mother and their child, that didn't start with humans. All mammals milk and care for their young. They release oxytocin. They bond with their offspring. And it's likely, this is maybe something that they're researching, and certain people are somewhere, but it's very likely that these systems, these oxytocin systems of bonding, have been repurposed into kind of our modern evolved notions of romantic love. Right? You're using the same pathways. That's how evolution works. And it's not just primates. Elephants engage in mourning behavior. They'll stay with other elephants when they're dying. Prairie voles are these cute little, like, what do you call them? Like hedgehogs, moles. They're little round furry prairie dogs. You guys, if you watch Star Trek, what are those little balls called? Well, they're really like those things. But they form lifelong pair bonds. And they show distress when they're separated. So much so that they are studied for the chemicals and the processes happening in their brains to help us understand our own mechanisms for bonding and long-term pairing. Wolves have highly cooperative pack structures, and they also have long-term mating pairs. So it's not unique to humans. These things that feel so uniquely human, they predate us, our emergence on the evolutionary landscape. So, once again, we have no need for the God hypothesis. We can understand it through a natural explanation. And once again, I will remind you that our point here is not to antagonize religion. Believe what you will. The point, rather, is to defend ourselves against moral judgments. We are not making any claims about anyone else's capacity to love or be loved. We're not threatening damnation or retribution for believing in the wrong God or failing to believe in any gods at all. We're merely staking out the ground for our own rational pursuit of meaning and understanding. René Descartes was a 17th century philosopher who was searching for a reliable basis for knowledge. If we can be deceived, he wondered, then how can we trust that anything is real? And what he came up with delivered what is perhaps the most famous line in all philosophy, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Even if everything else is a lie, we're being deceived. If we're brains in a vat, if this is all a simulation, we're characters in a video game, we're Neo in the Matrix. Even if all that is true, the one thing that we have that is indisputable is our own thoughts. That must be true, regardless of whatever else is true or not. I think, therefore I am. It is indisputable evidence of some kind of existence. And that idea was instrumental in the establishment of all modern philosophical thought and the scientific revolution. It was knowledge that we could be confident in and build upon. And it established that it's possible to get closer to knowing the actual truth about things and the true nature of reality. Our first beacon here is self-awareness, and then the revelation there is that I exist. This is largely inspired by an homage to Descartes' revolutionary idea. Our thoughts and our feelings perhaps are the only thing in the universe that we can absolutely be certain of, that they are real. They don't require any outside validation. We know they are real because we experience them. Experience is self-confirming. That's what it is. And to be clear, this is not the same thing as saying that everything we feel is true. It's important that we make that distinction as skeptics. The first discipline, in fact, right here is that I am fallible. We can be right about things, and to be sure, we will be a lot. But the fact that the feelings exist is not in dispute. Your feelings exist. Your thoughts exist. Even if the content of them sometimes can be misled, the experience is true and incontroversial. I know how I feel about my daughter, how proud I am when she gets up here and presents, how much I love her. I know how much I love my girlfriend. Happy Valentine's Day. I love you. I don't need to be told by anyone else that my love is real or complete. I don't need a skateboarder to tell me how I should feel about love or what I should love. I don't need any validation from a divine authority to know if my love is genuine or fulfilling. And even the knowledge that chemicals and neurons and millions of years of evolution are at work behind the scenes doesn't dampen the bonds and the connections that I have with my friends and my loved ones. As the primatologist and neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky wrote, the purpose of science is not to cure us of our sense of mystery and wonder, but to constantly reinvent and reinvigorate it. Our feelings are self-confirming. They don't require outside validation. The more we understand the true nature of our feelings, perhaps the better equipped we'll be to regulate our emotions, or focus our affections, or correct our biases. But our feelings don't need justification. Not from Jesse Martinez, not from my friend who wrote me a handwritten letter, not from Big Brother magazine, not from any gods or religions, and not even from our own biology. We are the lucky beneficiaries of an incomprehensibly long series of exceedingly improbable events. Let us honor the miracle of our existence and the extraordinary provenance of our feelings by loving completely and passionately and free of judgment. Happy Valentine's Day. Let it be so. I have a few closing remarks, and then we will do our final ceremony here, the closing ceremony. Oh. So once again, thank you. Our next sanctuary is going to be 1 month from today, March 14th. That will be at another Dallas location. It's going to be at White Rock Hills Branch Library. If you're not following our Instagram yet, please do, because we post all of our information. Last time I stood up here and announced the next location, it changed. Our last location got canceled by the library. It was outside of our control. But sometimes things will change. We need you guys to be connected to stay abreast of developments. The constellation cards that we handed out have a QR code on it. You can just scan that with your phone, with the camera on your phone. It will take you directly to our Instagram, if that helps. Speaking of the constellation is a less formal version of what we do here. This is a service modeled after a religious service. The constellation is a social setting. We do that on evenings. We do it on Thursday evenings. We meet at a coffee house. It's great conversation. We've had 2 of them already. I encourage you all to come out. It's fun. It's a nice way to talk to other people, get to know them, and also to exercise kind of some skeptical skills. It's all conversation from a skeptical perspective. After this service, we are going to Manhattan Project Beer Company. If you want to look that up on your phones, it's Manhattan Project Beer Company. I think it's about 13 minutes from here. Maybe with the rain, it's going to be a little more. It looks like a great location. Celina scouted it out. We think it's going to be perfect, but we always like to follow these things up. It's another opportunity to have good conversation, keep the community going. If you enjoyed this, please come back. Those of you that have returned, thank you for coming. Those of you that came for your first time, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. If you know someone who would enjoy it, invite them. We are trying to spread the word here. Do like I did. Fight your religious hesitancy. Share it. Far and wide. Spread it on your social media. Talk to your friends. Many of you have brought people. Tell people. We appreciate that. We think we have something of value here. We want to share it. Stay curious. Keep asking questions. Keep seeking answers. So, do I have any other comments I need to add before we get into our... So, we started the service with a ceremony, lighting of the candles. We are going to close with a consecration of extinguishing the candles. I'm going to bring up Adam. He is going to take us through the ceremony, which we call iron and glass in your reflection books. And that means that LuLu and Bella and Sarah will come up and they will be our lantern bearers. And I think Celina will handle the music. Oh, and Adam will do the lights. Oh no, Danny. Or Adam.
Far right, far right.
And Adam is mic'd.
Yeah. Yes, the far right light switch. Okay. We good? Are you ready? Oh, will we do it? Well, I'm already here. All right. We turn our attention once again to the lantern, an encasement of iron and glass that protects the candle burning within. The candle itself is a symbol representing the light of knowledge and reason. The light must be protected. Protect the light. Now we take up your lanterns and carry them out into the world. Hold them high and let them radiate light, shine against the encroaching darkness of pseudoscience, superstition, and unreason. Science is a candle in the dark. The lantern is a beacon of rationality. Spread the light. Religion is a powerful tool. We employ it earnestly in the service of our skeptical message. We acknowledge the role that the narrative and ritual play in our making our teachings more palatable and our lessons more transmissible. Even as our spirits are raised in transcendence, our feet remain grounded in reality. We draw a bright line between the tales that we tell ourselves and the truth. Blow out the candles. The candle carries no meaning outside our metaphors. The lantern is just iron and glass after all. The only source of meaning, so far as we know, is you and your self-awareness, the most extraordinary creation in all of the cosmos. You are the source of reason. You are the source of knowledge. You are how the universe thinks about itself. Feed your curiosity. Sharpen your skeptical tools. Spread the message of skepticism and critical thinking. You are the light. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. And we repeat together. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. Let it be so.
Amazing. All right. You guys, you made it. Thank you. Hopefully the rain is cooperating. For those of you that are joining us at the Manhattan Beer Company, we'll look forward to seeing you there. We've still got books and pins if anybody wanted to check those out. It's not too late. And hopefully we'll see you at the next sanctuary. Thanks, everybody. And happy Valentine's Day. Goodbye, live stream. Bye, Sean.